evaluating expressions. We have 4 examples that we're going to ask you to write down in your notebook and follow along with us. So the first example, negative 18, divided by the quantity of 2 plus 4 minus 4 squared. So there's a bunch of operations that we have, and we have to decide what to do first. Well, when there are parentheses or grouping symbols, we're going to handle those first. So 2 plus 4 being 6. Notice I copied everything down from the previous line of work, and I've just replaced 2 plus 4 with its answer. Now, between subtraction, division, and exponents should be done next. 4 to the second power means 4 times 4. That's 16. And now I have a choice between division and subtraction. Division is highest up in the scale of importance. Negative 18 divided by positive 6 is negative 3. And negative 3 minus 16, I'm going to add those numbers and keep their sign. So I'm adding the absolute value of those numbers. And so it's going to be negative 19. All right, so let's look at the next example. And so for this one, those special bars are the absolute value bars. And the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0. A lot of students like to think of absolute value as always being positive. And while it's true that the absolute value of a number will be positive, sometimes there's a negative sign out front, like in this case, and we have to pay special attention to that, okay? All right, so once you copy it down, I would ask you, what should we do first? And most people look at that parentheses and say, well, let's do that division problem, 24 divided by negative 8. That's negative 3. Notice I've copied everything else down just the way we see it. And then I would say, what should we do next? And probably you would say the exponent. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. The next thing we would do is we would take the absolute value of negative 20. That is positive 20. But you need to keep that negative sign out in front of it, because that negative sign in front is standing for the opposite of the absolute value of negative 20. All right, so I'm keeping that negative sign. And now in the second expression, there's a math problem to do inside those absolute value symbols. So we are going to add negative 35 plus 5, giving you negative 30. And the absolute value of negative 30 is 30. Okay, now we're just left with 3 numbers which are being added. I might as well add from left to right. Negative 20 plus 9, giving me negative 11, plus 30 equals 19. So there are a lot of steps, right? Because I'm showing my reasoning in each line of work. I'm showing that I understand the correct order of operations, and I'm proving why my answer of 19 is correct. So I'm going to ask you to copy this one down. I'll read it as you copy it. Negative 5 minus negative 3 squared plus the square root of 49 minus the absolute value of negative 6 plus 2. I will remind you that the square root of a number means what number times itself equals the number inside the expression. So what number times itself equals 49. I want you to put this video on pause and give it a try. Show your work line by line and come up with an answer that you have justified through showing your reasoning. When you're ready, turn your video back on to play and let's check. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is the exponent. Negative 3, I'm raising to the second power. So that's negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9. But don't forget, there's a negative sign that needs to drop down. You can't forget about that minus sign, okay? All right, next, what would you like to do? Well, square root is actually an exponent. It's raising something to the 1/2 power, so we should do that radical term. The square root of 49 being 7. Next, I hope you would agree that the absolute value bars kind of act as a grouping symbol. So we're going to add negative 6 plus 2, remembering to copy down the minus sign before the absolute value bars. Now we're going to find the absolute value of negative 4, which is 4. And now we're just going to work from left to right. Negative 5 minus 9 is negative 14. When we add 7 to that, that's negative 7. Minus 4 is negative 11. How'd you do? Okay, one last one to try. And this one looks different because it's a fraction. But remember, the fraction bar really just means divide. So we're taking an expression that's somewhat complicated in the numerator, and then we'll divide it by this value of whatever the denominator is. So which of these things should we do first, right? The highest order of importance would be exponents. And let's do either the 6 squared, which is 36, but then it's the opposite of 36. Be careful on this first term, okay? I'm not squaring negative 6. I'm squaring 6 and then finding the opposite of it. So I found the square of 6, which is 36, and the opposite of 36 is negative 6. And then I multiplied negative 2 to the 4th power, which is positive 16. Now let's figure out what is the sum in the numerator. Negative 36 plus 16. Well, we're going to subtract the numbers, the absolute value of the numbers, and take the sign of the number with the bigger absolute value. So my sum will still be negative, negative 20. And the denominator, it's 5, and negative 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. I hope you feel good about evaluating somewhat complicated expressions.